Hi guys, hi everyone. Hi Flo, welcome. Hi Flo, welcome. My name is Dipanshu. I'm one of the co-founder with Abhijit, and we'll be starting in a minute. Abhijit is trying to join. I think his Zoom, crashed, and he's trying to set it off 1 second. I just said a word with him. Give me a second, please. Yeah.
Sure, no
Thank you
worries.
so much for joining in. Thanks. Hi everyone. So yeah, we'll be joining in few minutes. We'll be starting in few minutes. I think we are also live on YouTube as well, Flo. So some of the people have joined from YouTube as well, and one more channel. I think our team has made it live at one more channel. So Abhijit would be here, and I think he's there. He's there already. Hi Abhijit.
Hey Flo, how are you doing? Can you hear me?
Yes, Abhijit, I can hear you. Hi, how are you doing?
Awesome. I'm doing great as well. Thanks for joining in.
Sure, no, likewise. Thanks for having me. I was looking forward to the webinar since like weeks, so like I'm really happy to be here.
Of course, yeah. I guess my video has a background applied.
Yes, indeed. Yeah, you look like you're in space.
Yeah. Maybe my team can take care of that stuff. And we have people joining in. How's the weather there?
It's getting colder. So I don't know how I can say this in India, but in Austria or Europe, it's getting colder. The heat wave or the heat is kind of over and it's getting colder now with
Likewise, the weather is changing here as well. We are witnessing in nowadays, and then soon, since I live in the capital, it will start getting closer to 5 degrees or 2 degrees. So that's better because in capital we usually face like 40 degrees or more than 40 degrees.
Right.
Yes, in the summers. It's pretty hot. But then, yeah, it's the good time now. Winter is coming.
I heard it in Game of Thrones as well. There you go.
Oh, yeah.
Winter is coming. Yeah.
Awesome. I think while the team takes care of the background, we can get started with the important discussion that we're going to have around an interested topic. So we're going to have a webinar today on implementing network automation with Gen AI and telemetry, which is the hottest topic nowadays around the globe. Everyone is looking forward to, or everyone is wondering, rather, I would say, what this Gen AI thing is all about. And I couldn't find a better person than you to spread a word about what this cool technology is all about and how can we really just a minute. Yep. I have another laptop connected and it started streaming on my Apple TV. Okay, a bit of glitches, but yeah, let's get started with the webinar today. This is, I guess, about fifth or sixth webinar consecutively we are having at PyNet Labs. And most of the audience over here must be familiar about myself, but I'll still introduce about myself. So my name is Abhijit, and I've been delivering corporate trainings and consultancy around the network automation space for more than, I would say, 6 years relevantly. But my total experience is about 12 to 13 years in terms of me delivering trainings and consultancy around the networking space. And I hold some of the credentials which are very valuable in the world today, including DevNet Expert, which is also relevant to CCIE DevNet. I'm a Cisco certified instructor. I'm authorized to deliver trainings on behalf of Cisco to its customers across the globe. And yeah, these are a couple of my valuable credentials that I hold around the network automation space. And most of the audience over here must be familiar about the company PyNet Labs. I'm a co-founder of the company. And we specifically deal in delivering trainings and consultancy around the network automation space itself. And with the motive of spreading good information and knowledgeable information or insights about how network automation is doing in the world, we are putting efforts into connecting with experts in the domain. So I'm privileged to welcome Flo Pachinger with us today, who is an expert in the domain of artificial intelligence, of network automation. And I'll hand over the podium to you, Flo, to introduce about yourself. It's an honor having you.
Perfect. Thank you, Abhijit. Thanks again for having me. So I'm Flo Pachinger. I've been with Cisco DevNet now, like not Cisco, but Cisco DevNet for 4 years now, focusing on various things with Python, of course, but then device level APIs, network automation. A lot of these things I did in the IoT space as well. But I have like a whole range of Cisco products there, which I cover. Or which I covered, of course, because you can't tackle everything. But yeah, like as you're familiar with November 2022, a lot changed with the introduction or with the release of mainstream generative AI with ChatGPT, and so it also changed my career so far. And this is why I super interesting technology, amazing things what can happen there. And this is why since now 1.5 years I'm focusing on AI, on Gen AI at least, and even before that I focused a lot as well on predictive AI, MLI operations, and so on, and this umbrella term in the end. And yeah, so I'm happy if you're interested, as we said, with network automation and with AI, I think I hope to bring more light into this one and to help you there.
Awesome. Great. Thank you so much for joining again. And I guess we're going to have about 70 to 80 minutes of this webinar where we'll also be able to see some demos from you, which is pretty interesting for everyone who joins us on the webinar. But to get started, I'd like to I'd like us to discuss about the background first, because since when we're trying to implement network automation, this itself requires a prerequisite knowledge of knowing networking. If the application developer, role engineers directly jumps into network automation, then still the decision makers for deploying the network infrastructure feels a bit scary, that because there are critical decisions that needs to be made, and if the job or if the responsibilities are handover from networking team to the application development team, then it feels a bit tricky, and it feels a bit, I would say, scary situation, because a small mistake can entirely affect the network deployment. And that's why it is highly recommended for having someone who knows network from the scratch to be able to implement automation. So it is a layered, I would say, skill that engineers try to build in their profile so that they can make decisions about what, because there is a term which is getting pretty popular nowadays, and I'm almost discussing this term in every webinar that we're holding, that we are conducting, which is talked about reactive. Instead of using reactive troubleshooting, people are moving towards proactive troubleshooting. And I guess artificial intelligence plays a huge role in that. So before jumping directly into artificial intelligence, why don't you tell us more about how I would say the device level APIs usually work, and what exactly are APIs, and what all are the platforms that have been enabled by Cisco to use this API? And is there any specific team who actually puts their efforts in developing APIs for all the tools, including ACI, for solutions like ACI and NSO, SD access, and all of that? How does it go along?
No, perfect. Love this question, love the discussion already. So first of all, I think it's very important, and as you said, it's like you need to have an understanding of the networking, because you need to know what you do, like how the network functions, the troubleshooting part at its core, right? And I see, and this is what I tell most of the network engineers, you don't need to become software developers, full stack developers. You don't need to do that. You see Python as a tool, or programming itself as a tool to help you. We always mention Python because Python is one of the, if not the most popular programming language right now. It is easy to use. It had many frameworks, especially in the networking space and network engineering space. Even it goes to the DevOps space, right? Like everywhere. And especially also, since we're talking about GenAI, it's the same. There are various tools, frameworks there, which are easy, really easy to use there as well. And I would see this as a tool. So like, don't see it as a burden. I need to know networking. I need to know software engineering. Don't see it as a burden. See it as a tool to help you save time, reduce the costs, that you focus on what's really necessary on in your daily job, basically. And going from there is that these kind of tools, or like Python as one of the tool, but it's the tool set basically, because how you can get data, configuration files, operational data, in the end, like CPU utilization, these kinds of things. How do you get these out of the devices or out of the platforms? Because it depends. You can directly go to the device, so a Cisco iOS XE device, use netconf, use restconf, whatever you prefer, and then to pull data out there. And what kind of data? You need to have the understanding of networking. You need to know this is important for the network. This is important for us. This is there are various of, as you definitely know, there are various use cases, and you need to tackle these use cases. So usually do it in a prioritization, like prioritize the use cases at first, like the ones which are the urgent the most. Try at least how you can automate these things. Try like how to deal and how to tackle these, and then in order to get the data out of platforms, and platform which I mean is Cisco Catalyst Center, for example, Cisco ACI. There are APIs, REST APIs, northbound APIs there, where you can, with Python, with a programming language, but with any other language, basically, because this is like standardized protocol. REST is basically a standardized protocol on top of HTTP, HTTPS, where you can get data in, like I said, like operational configuration data, because this is also very important. Like you maybe you use MIPS, SNMP, and these kind of things, which is still valuable, but in the end, it's like you getting the data out there is, I think, the best one.
Makes sense. Yeah. And we can also think that whenever we try to send some data onto the device, maybe on iOS XE, XR, and XOS, which are pretty much capable of having model-driven programmability, that's where Yang data modeling also comes up, and that's where we see protocols like netconf and resconf in action. Most of the people also feel difficult in terms of getting comfortable with building up, let's say, since netconf and resconf demands you to create payloads or configuration payloads like XML and JSON. So, and these configuration payloads also needs to be created by following the rules defined in their respective Yang data models. So people find it difficult also, but there is a great documentation available, and one should be able to differentiate what is configuration data and what is operational data. Because when we think of pulling data, or technically, which is called as doing telemetry, we think about pulling out operational data, for example, how many packets have been received by an interface on a certain period time. So we might subscribe to such kind of data, maybe for every 5 seconds, or we might want to check whether the routing table is correct or not, or a specific route is available in our routing table, or a certain neighborship, maybe a BGP neighborship is up or not. Every 5 minutes, a certain amount of time can be set as an interval over there. So such kind of operational data also needs to be understood. So can I say that individuals really need to focus on learning data structuring language and data modeling language before jumping into these things?
So I would say like not too complex. No. Like, why no? Because in the end, and I saw this with many people, they see the Yang structure. Like you can go on github.com and you see all the Yang models from any vendor. And the models, like we have OpenConfig models, we have IETF models, we have vendor-specific Cisco models there. And I would say you don't need to specifically look at the Yang data model. You don't need to write any data model there, right? Because the thing what you get out of the switch is basically already structured. You'd only need to understand it. So basically what you get out is a JSON file format or the data in XML format, which are open standard formats, and they are pretty good. Like you only they're easy to read, and I would say easy to understand. You just need to look at the brackets. So what kind of brackets there are. So do you have a list, or you have a string, or you have like an object there? But don't be afraid. I would say to the audience, like, don't be afraid there to see to use like these data model there, because again, it's a tool, it's an instrument which helps you to understand, okay, what kind of data gets out there. And with that, you don't need to study Yang. You don't need to create your own Yang models and so on. You don't need to do that. You basically say, okay, this is like my REST API call. This is my netconf XML message there. Give me the configuration there. And the cool thing is there are Python frameworks there where you can write it just in one code. So where you can just get the data out there in one code. You don't need to have like this whole XML, write this remote procedure call, like the communication between devices. You don't need to write this. There are tools out there which can help you with one line of code, right? And so with that, I would say like don't be afraid if you tackle this. If you look at one of the learnings lab what we have at DevNet, or I'm pretty sure PyNet labs for sure as well, that in the end, there are like really good resources there which you can help you to get started, and then you will see it's not that difficult, I would say.
Yeah. Even I have a comment over there that mostly since I've been delivering trainings to a lot of hundreds of candidates, and the very first step or the fundamental step towards learning to model-driven programmability is about getting connected with your compatible device using netconf or resconf. And the very first operation that comes along is connecting to port number 830 on the iOS XE device, and then gives you a response of like list of all the data models that are present. So everyone gets panic. Oh my God, do we really need to read all these data models? So I try to calm everyone down that, okay, we're not required to learn all of these data models, but should be able to understand and be able to understand the XML namespace and then the name of the data model and the revision date. And if you crack that information, then you would be able to find out that what is the data model that you are interested in, depending on the type of information that you want to pull from the device or push to the device. And that's
Right.
when you should know how to read a Yang structure. What is a container, what is a list, and what is a leaf, and then what different types of data nodes that can be there. If you crack that information and if you know how to read that information and create your XML or JSON payload, for which you can also take help of tools like Yang Suite, which is a damn good tool, which breaks down the tree structure of your Yang data model and also helps you create your payloads. This kind of can help you get going with it. So thanks for clarifying that it's not really required to learn all these data models. If you know how to learn just one piece of the data model and find out the necessary information you want, it can get you going, right? Awesome. And then comes to the API stuff. Now, when participants or students or aspirants start learning about model-driven programmability, they make their thumb rule that, okay, whatever payload that we want to create, we should refer and we should, first of all, find the interested data model. And once we find that data model, that can help you create your XML payload. But then they learn the next technology, which comes APIs, right? If we even speak about the DevNet Associate course or DevNet Professional course, that's where they start learning about the APIs then. And they learn that REST-conf and NetConf, or rather we can say model-driven programmability, can be implemented on specific devices like iOS XE, iOS XR, and XOS. But there comes REST API, which is compatible with most of the solutions that are out there. So any solution, rather, I would say, which is compatible of providing you GUI or GUI, can allow you to execute API calls. But then people get confused over there that, well, we have Yang data models for creating payloads when it comes to NetConf and RESTConf. What about REST API then? Do we have really documentation or any data models over there? That's when they get to know that, okay, there are various other data models. Oh, sorry, there are various other documentations which they need to read through. So again, same question. Does anyone needs any prerequisite knowledge to learn about these documentation, or is just a good going REST API documentation that they can refer to about their specific solutions, which can help them create the API calls? What is the best recommended method over there, Flo?
For that, I think I'm a fan of documentation, of good documentation. This is
Likewise.
the number one, like the number one use case. So especially if you're starting with a product, or especially with REST API, and you try to get like or make sense out of the whole API, out of the API calls and these kind of things. If it's not well documented, then this is not your fault. This is the fault of the vendor providing the product, providing like the API. And so I think the most important part there is for sure that at first, like to go to the documentation, there we try, at least from the Cisco side, we try to have like requirements, like minimum requirements for any documentation which is on our website, which means that we have a getting started page with a small overview. We have a best practices case. We have like an example code snippet as well in order to get you started. I'm a fan of using like in the end, like copy paste the first part, or now we're living in a GenAI world. So like I'm really happy to basically go to ChatGPT, to Mistral, or wherever, and to any code LLM, large language model, and basically type in, hey, please give me like a Python code with this and this API call there. And then you copy paste it. It might not get the right. So like at first, you know, and you definitely need to pull in your credentials. However, it's a start. It's a start for you to get to know more and get to see actually as well, like how it works and how you can basically pull the data out there. But as you said, like with the REST APIs and with the examples, I would see that REST APIs are fundamental knowledge. So everybody should definitely know about REST APIs and how it works, because it's like a platform independent, vendor independent. Like a complete tech independent as well solution, or like capability where you can talk from your device, from your platform, from your GUI, as you said before, from your application, which is written in Python, Java, C, wherever, to another application stack, to another human, to another thing, whatever. This is the document. This is the communication, and this is definitely really helpful. It's easy to use. You have your payload in JSON, which you can read, which is human readable, which also the computer, our machines, they understand, how to process the data. So with that, I'm definitely a REST fan. And if you think about it, like the communication, what you're using REST basically every day, because when you open a browser and you get a request from the website, from any website, you're using REST, if you know it or you don't know it, but you are using REST, and that's the cool thing there.
Yeah, I think if anyone can get familiar about HTTP as quick as possible, they're indirectly getting familiar with the REST. It's just that your front-end tools, like your web browser, creates a REST API call on your behalf. Instead of using a web browser, you're trying to use tools like Postman or Python in order to craft your own HTTP call and seek the data from the server you're communicating with. So when we talk about crafting your own API call, I would say four fundamental things that you need to be aware about is the method that you're using, the URL that you want to communicate with, the headers, the extra information that you want to use, and the optional body or payload that you want to send. Whereas three things are mandatory, the fourth thing, which is payload or body, is subjective to the method that you're using. If you're using a method like get, then you're pretty much looking forward to fetch data from the server. So that doesn't require you to send any payload most of the times. But when you're trying to send any queries like put, patch, delete, or something else, your intent is to make configuration modification to the existing config, or maybe send new configuration on the device or so, which would require you to define a payload or so, which can be defined, of course, by using JSON or by using mostly JSON, I would say. And how do you get to know what is the data that you need to type? Well, that's where you can use developer.cisco.com as your platform to browse through the API documentation for the interested solution that you're communicating with. Am I correct, Flo? Any comments there?
I think I have nothing to add in that one. So very well explained.
So yeah, I think that gets us going with the APIs. Now, you mentioned a couple of times that you can use AI tools instead of browsing through the documentations. If you're lazy like me, I would go and open up ChatGPT and ask that, hey, can you write me a Python script to actually communicate with my vManager API and then fetch out a list of managers that has been onboarded on my SD-WAN. And it's going to go and give me the URL and give me the method and give me the payload that I can use to fetch this information about. Tell us more about what this, I mean, we already had a webinar with John Bianco, and he introduced us with what is AI, but we didn't talk about Gen AI over there. So how are these two terminologies rather are different? Are we missing any piece to understand what is AI and how does it differ with Gen AI, or both of these are same things?
I'm happy to. I'm really happy to. So the thing is, and this is also very important, I would say, for networking engineers to understand the differences between the generative AI, or how I call it, with predictive AI. Because, and I have a demo for that in a bit, because the thing is that you're using, or we are all basically using a lot of data, like CPU utilization, lots of data. You're using like specific, when it comes to networking bandwidth requirements, or any kind of things. Like there are lots of numbers involved. And then on the other hand, like you have like this generative AI, which is per se generating, as the name says it, generating data, generating images, text mostly, of course, including code. But it can also create like videos, images, and audio, and these kind of things. And I actually would like to share so that you can grasp it, that you can actually see, okay, what is a good example. I have a demo for that. So like I will share my screen now in order that you can actually see, okay, what's happening there.
Yeah.
So one of the main goals, what I would like to do is, I'm here now in Google Colab. I can definitely recommend it as well. Like this is an Jupyter notebook where you're here now, and you can run your Python code inside of it, inside your browser. So if you're not familiar with it, I just executed this Python code here. I just click here on the play button and I execute it. And the thing is that I have here a revenues CSV file. And bear with me here. So like basically you're saying like you're the CEO of your company, you have the year 2010, and you made revenues like $10,000, let's say. And you see here that it's slowly increasing, like until the year 2024. It's slowly increasing. And it's kind of like a linear structure, as you see, right? Like it's kind of like linear there. And
Yeah.
now our goal is, hey, like you're asked, so you're basically one of the engineers. You're asked, what is the revenue of the year 2025? And
Okay.
I use this example, because maybe you can to give an example on the network engineering part. Exactly, but for you to give an example on the network engineering part is basically what is my usage, my bandwidth usage the next day? What is my bandwidth usage the next week? What is the bandwidth usage of or the CPU utilization of my switch at 12 o'clock tomorrow, for example? So. But here I'm just using now a really simple example there. And what can you use? So you can use like a predictive AI. It's also called AI in their way, algorithm. So here we have like linear regression. This is what I used. So with this Python library, and you see this, you don't need to understand per se like this Python code, but with this Python code, I'm using linear regression and saying, hey, please predict me for year 2025, predict me the output. So I'm running this code. It takes a bit of time. And I also did it like in a graphic way so that you can also see it like where we are. So we are using a linear regression machine learning model or AI model algorithm. And this is the output. It says for year 2025, it's like 167,000 there. And if you see the linear regression, it's like linear data going up. So here, this seems about right because data goes up, down, up, down. So it seems about right. And now what I want you to understand is basically we can use the same or we can do the same with an LM and to see, okay, how it behaves differently or how it is there. So I have here LM Studio. And LM Studio is, if you're not familiar with it, like I'm running here Meta Llama 3.18b on my MacBook. So this is like a local LM, which I'm running. And the cool thing is I can attach this revenues file, what you see here. So the same revenues, what we had here before. I can attach this and I can say, this is the sales data from the past years. And then please predict the sales value for year 2025. And now let's see what a LM, like in a way, a probabilistic LM is doing. And it does a good job, I would say. So like generative AI is really good because based on the text data, based on all of these data, from financial studying, think of university, it basically have at least some idea on what to do there. However, the prediction itself is basically saying, this is the data analysis. They look at the differences between these kind of years. Then the prediction, they kind of say, hey, this is the value. Like they basically predict through the growth rate and these kind of things. They predict it. And this is the value for what the LM is coming out with. And you see here is 240,000. So we have now 240,000 versus the 167,000. And this is where I say, like the LM is basically wrong in a way, because the LM is a probabilistic model. It says there, first of all, it's like the goal is generating data, generating text data, generating like code. But it's not good at these kind of like historical data, predictive analysis, also some classification tasks. So with that, first of all, and this is the number one goal, what I would like for you to have is that don't, if you're like a network engineer and you would like to like say, what is the utilization there? Don't just grab the shiny LM and say, it will solve everything. This is not the case. Like I would think first about your tool set on what kind of like normal or like proven algorithm you would like to choose versus the probabilistic large language model, what you see here.
Yeah, but before going forward and jumping into the advanced discussion of it, most of the audience over here might still be wondering what are we talking about when we say LLM and you can say large language model and so. Would you like to give a flashback on what LLM is all about? Or when we talk about LM Studio, does it mean the language model studio? And then what does the word large stand for it? And is there any opposite way to that? Maybe a short language model or something like that. Would you mind taking us through what these concepts are all about in the AI world?
No, sure. No, I'm happy to. So with that, think about a large language model is basically like an abstraction of a lot of books, a lot of text data, intellectual data.
Brain, you have learned a lot of or read a lot of books.
Read a lot of books. Read whole Wikipedia, encyclopedias, the whole public libraries, mostly in English language, but then of course there's some books there which are in other languages there. And they large language model, they have like this knowledge or like this piece of knowledge where they read all the books, they have at least some information what they know, and you as the user can basically say, hey, ask questions there, and ask questions in a way. Why is it important? Because they make actually they make the prediction of the next word. So maybe you see it. I just type in here some word with prediction, and I just send it there. And think about it, you will see that it comes out word by word, so token by token. So if you put like this, it basically predicts, like here, because it's like the a base value there, it has already there, but it puts out at first a prediction, then the year, then 2025. So based on, like, think about it as a big vector space or big space in a way, like big space with lots of words there and lots of dimensions. And it picks there basically based on a probability, only probability. This is the first word, this is the next word, this is the next word, based on all of it. So if you think about like LM Studio is like a desktop application. And I am running here, as you can see, like at the above, Meta Llama 3.1, which is LM from Meta, like the owner of Facebook. And they are open sourcing their large language model. And large means like it's big, because in the end, it's like they are training it on really trillions of books, trillions of pages, what they have, in order to give the user a specific output based on their answer, based on their questions, basically.
Makes sense. So if I summarize that, it means that you have an empty brain, and then you are training that empty brain would be called as a language model. And then when you feed that empty brain with trillions of books of information and knowledge, you're kind of training that empty brain. And then once you have trained that particular brain, you can ask your questions to that brain. And based on the knowledge that the brain possesses, it should answer to your query. And because you're training that particular brain on predictive capabilities, you can also ask that brain to predict something by providing some contextual data to it. Am I correct over here?
That is correct. That's a good analogy where you basically say, hey, this is like you fill it, and how much you fill it, it's up to Meta, to ChatGPT, and so on. And usually they don't provide the sources where they got the data. They say usually it's public data. So usually they feed it with lots of public data, and then in order to generate your answers.
Yeah. And when we say that we are trying to integrate the Gen AI with the network automation space, can we say that we are looking forward to consume a solution which also consumes a large language model, and then it maybe predicts some of the predictive actions for you, which you can take. Maybe, for example, if I'm going to see a spike in the bandwidth consumption in my network, then based on how your network has been performing, we can kind of export the flow records to some AI engine. And that particular AI engine is going to notify the network admin that, hey, you're going to see a spike in your bandwidth based on the historical data. Would you like me to make some configuration changes on your behalf so that whenever you see such spike, your amount of data is either diverted to your alternate transport link, or maybe it is taken care of in an appropriate way so that you don't see a data loss over there. Am I correct over there?
That's true. And then you need to be aware that there are two parts basically, and AI is like this big umbrella term. But the
Okay.
one part where you said is like with the prediction or with saying, okay, there is a spike there. This is where I'm switching again to here to the linear regression. This is where like predictive AI algorithms, they are helping you.
Mhm.
And if something is happening there and if there is some issue there, then if you would like to have an assistant, some sort of like supporter, some sort of help bot, as you can say, then you are using generative AI there because like you can use these two technologies together. They are both in the whole umbrella term. They are both AI solutions, so to say, and they can work together. And this is also what we are having in Cisco in many products there. If you look at security, for example, in our security products, they are using a lot of predictive AI in order to get the spikes there, in order to say, hey, what is the like the SSI? What is, for example, when it comes to the Wi-Fi access points? What is the cellular strength, or what is like the strength of the signal there? And
Mhm.
then based on what basically will come, I'm pretty sure about this, is that you have like this assistant there, and this assistant you have it's an interface to you, to the user, to the network admin, which is then telling you, hey, there will be a spike tomorrow. These are my solutions on what you should do. But please go ahead. So like it's warning you and giving you already a solution. And this is again coming to, you will save a lot of time there, because in the end, it's like you're the user, you have all the suggestions there, and then it's up to you to implement it or not, if you feel like it's good to know or not.
So you don't need to put all those man hours to identify whether there's gonna be a spike or something, right? Otherwise, manually you would have to see and identify and analyze all that data by using some manual tools and then figure out whether there's gonna be any breakout on the network or not. But instead of that, you have put up AI. And can we call it that this is done by using predictive AI in a better way instead of using generative AI? Because both of them
Yes, that,
said are two
yeah.
different terms under AI umbrella, correct?
Indeed, totally correct. And this is what I usually in these talks would like to give the user, is that don't think about how to apply GenAI, think about what is my problem, and based on that, or what is my challenge, and then based on that, choose your specific AI algorithm and which can help you. So if an LLM, a large language model here, can't help you with like predictive values, or to have a prediction there, it is totally fine not to use it. Use like really sophisticated, established algorithms which are like focused there, in instead of using an LM. But then again, if you want to have an assistant, if you want to do some code creation there, and I also have some demos there on that, then definitely go for generative AI and use like the LM in order to make your life easier.
So it's like we can break these things down easily in two different use cases, right? Whenever you want to provide some information to your assistant, and then you want your assistant to predict some outcome out of that data, go for predictive AI. And when you want to provide just a descriptive context to your AI, and then want to generate a code out of it, maybe just like using ChatGPT, we can ask it that, can you create a Python script for me in order to communicate with my SD-WAN vManager using API. And that's where it's not using predictive AI there, it's using generative AI to create
Exactly.
something new out of the information which I have provided to it. And then you mentioned specifically that you need to be wise for choosing the algorithm that you want. Now, we also see on your screen that you're using an LLM, which is created by Meta. So is the user also concerned about choosing the right data model or the algorithm? How does that story go along?
So I would say that right now you can basically choose to run the LM on-prem or like in your data center.
Yeah.
However, you need to have like GPUs there, like you need to have GPU support. Right now, as you can see here, I'm using like a small 8 billion parameters model. So the 8B stands for 8 per million parameters of what the model has.
Yeah.
And this is like a very small model. So if you think about like a Meta biggest model is 405 billion parameters. So it's like nearly plus 400. So, and there you need like lots of RAM and lots of GPUs. I wouldn't say like lots of when it comes to just like if you want to just talk to the LLM. So you don't want to train it, you just want to talk to it. It's called inferencing. Then you don't need like big CPUs there, right? If you have a bunch, 1 to 3 NVIDIA's GPUs there, it's easy and also good for inferencing or for like you save time there. And if you think about this, like what you see here on my MacBook, it's kind of like fast, right? Maybe it doesn't have like the big results or the best results there as ChatGPT, as Mistral, but still you can use it anytime. It doesn't cost anything. So I would definitely start with a local LM. Or the other way is you can use an LM service. So service as ChatGPT, or you use OpenAI APIs. So where you basically send the whole prompt, what you see here, the question, you can send it via Python to a cloud-based LM.
Makes sense. Yeah. So it's like technically you're simplifying what you just explained, that you are asking a question to a system or to a machine, and then that particular machine needs enough resources to look back in its brain and find out an answer for you. If you give some data to it, which may be a small table of 10 rows and 10 column, it would rather require maybe some KBs of RAM or some storage to be utilized. But if you give it a table of information which contains a billion of records, then it's going to require more resources and more time to process that data and then finally come back to you with an answer. Am I correct over there?
That's true. That's true.
Awesome. That helps a lot to understand what's the difference. Now, so far, what we understand is the difference between Gen AI and the predictive AI. Now, when we talk about how we can utilize it in the network automation space, can you highlight some of the use cases?
I'm definitely happy to. So one would be, and I like what we see and where we, especially Cisco, like are developing and going this way, where we would like to help the user as much as possible is troubleshooting. And with that, we have already now the LMs, they have lots of, like in this case, the capabilities there. So one would be, so I'm switching now to Mistral. So Mistral is basically similar to ChatGPT, like a model where you can, like a large language model where you ask questions, but this time it's not locally, it's like in the cloud. And there is one thing, and let me just copy paste one of the code there, which I have. Let me just, is it in this folder or in the other? Of course.
So it's like ChatGPT uses their own LLM. Mistral is using their own LLM, and whosoever does the best job to train their brains, they might be getting more popular because they are generating better results for the user.
That's a good question actually. Like, or that's a good statement, which reminds me there on that. So basically, performance-wise, there is like this LM leaderboard, where you can see which kind of LM is basically like doing its best, or is basically saying like this is the best LM.
There are
However,
people it also.
Indeed. So, however, it always depends basically on your costs. It's like similar, I would say, but still it depends on your cost. It depends on what kind of platform you want to use, and also on the use case. The LMs, they are, especially in the cloud, they're behaving differently. So when I ask this question to Mistral, it will give me a different answer than I would ask this to Google Gemini or to ChatGPT. So I think it's also a lot of testing and always use case specific on what the output is. So here, for example, we have this that how can I solve this error message on my iOS XE device? And here you see that I just copied like from logging, like a simple authentication failed. So I put in my wrong password into the iOS XE device, into the Cisco switch there. And I just copy these two error log messages there. And think about this, you can post there anything from the log files, anything specific. Of course, you can post here like bunch of items, but be aware that you can't post like a whole book, let's say, or like a really 100 megabytes of log data or these kinds of things. You can't put in there. This is
At least
why
you
at
do
first.
not try to read the logs anymore.
Indeed. So it's like the cool thing is there that you basically prioritizing and only copy and pasting most probably like the error messages with error or with warning. And then basically you ask the LM, okay, so like how can I solve this? And there you go. Like it basically says, hey, verifies user credentials. This is number one. Like there is the failed to authentication issues. Then check SSH configuration, check AAA configuration, check user permission. So it gives a lot of really cool, I think, user guides there. And usually, and this is where I think also like Google is kind of like nervous there because nowadays, like you would Google this, right? And
Yeah.
nowadays it saves a lot of time where you just put this in and then it lists all the like steps you can take in order to verify and do your troubleshooting there. And I think this helps, and this would save a lot of time, I would say.
Instead of going through all the Reddit threads or Stack Overflow threads, you directly have an answer exactly for what you're looking. So that saves a lot of time, of course.
That's the cool thing. And like with that, this would be one example. But the other one is that there were like, and we're checking the large language models there. There are like, we're using here now Mistral Large 2. So this is just a personal choice that I'm using this. But if I would like to have code, like Python programming code, I actually can use CodeStral. Like this LLM is specialized in creating specific code from various programming languages.
Okay.
And of course, Python there as well. So if you say, and if you are saying, I'm like new to Python, or I find it difficult to write Python code or where to start, you basically just say like, so write a Python script to give me the running classic one configuration of a Cisco IOSXE device. And usually you can also state there what kind of library you want to use, or if you want to use netconf or resconf. In this way, let's see what I write now without anything. I think it will use netmiko. Let's see. Yes, exactly. So like if you're not familiar with it, there is a Python library called netmiko, and this is basically like a library which helps you in order to easily get data out of your Python, out of your Cisco switch. So at first you need to install the library like Python, and then on top you install the library. And then you see here, and maybe some of you are familiar with it, you just type in here like the device type, which is Cisco iOS, the IP address, username, password, Cisco iOS username, password. And then you can actually state the configuration. So like basically the show command or the command, the CLI command. And then you just type in here show config, and then you have the output. So of course the LM only can show you the information. It can't like execute it. So like you need to copy paste the document there and then fill in your credentials, and then you basically send it. But this is like really cool as well, and I think will save a lot of time. You just copy paste this, and then you're good to go basically.
Indeed, yeah. Indeed, it will save a lot of time, of course. Instead of wandering through the netmiko documentations and figuring out what exactly is
Correct.
right. It's great to get a ready-made code. And that's where the network engineers have struggled a lot whenever they step into the world of network automation. People find it hard to learn programming, and people find it hard to find out what exactly is the library that they need to be using in order to achieve the use case. This is where they can get going also. Although Cisco have made a great platform available called developer.cisco.com, where there are lots and lots of examples available about different automation use cases on a platform like Code Exchange. But then when you have a tool like this, which can actually give you a ready-made script for your specific use case, it is definitely going to save a lot of time. Instead of you going to your application developer team and running a mail trail, why don't you just run a query towards your AI tool, and you can get it going. Awesome.
One other thing I would have is that so this is now more of an outlook as well, is that right now AI is moving more into an agentic world, like agents.
Yeah.
So basically, where you have like a piece of software or software component which has different functions, as in getting data from the database, requesting data from various websites, but then also to like having the power of an LLM integrated. And I did some testing there as well, and I basically said, hey, I mean, you need to copy and paste the whole code there. And you need to like fill in the credentials. You need to do like this. So why can't we do it like easier, right? And so this is what I did actually, even easier. And this is what
You're
I
making us
experienced.
lazy now.
This is what I'm like experimenting now, is like that I would like to basically type in a message or type in like a query there, and get actually the response from the device. So this is basically what I would like to do. So this is mostly a testing, I have to say. So with that, bear in mind that this is like a bit of testing there as well. So I'm going into my code here,
Yeah.
and I'm using here Mistral, of course. So like of course I'm using Mistral because the local LM meta did not get my results. There were good results, but not so much. So I'm actually saying what the query is, and I also have some other queries there, but what is the iOS version? I'm just putting this one in. And I'm using, so maybe you know this one, I am using the, I think I still have it here. I'm using the DevNet, let's just make it bigger, DevNet sandbox from iOS 16. So maybe familiar, it's like an always on sandbox. So when I SSH into this box there, I just type in the password, which I know by heart. You can find it online. And you see here, okay, I'm just doing the show version exam, and you see here, 1712 is like the version there.
Yeah.
And of course, there are some other information there, but just the version. And I'm doing this as well. So I'm just scrolling here up now to see that I selected the sandbox profile there. So usually you see here the sandbox, you see here, yeah, you see the password there as well, which you shouldn't do in code. So you should not put any credentials in code, but this is again for testing.
Yeah.
And let's actually, and there's some bunch of other code, but don't mind this now. I'm just executing this one.
Okay.
And now you see here, like this is mostly about information. So I'm using the LM a lot to create an agent, like to create something what to do, and to create basically the Python code. And as you see here, this is the output what we have. So we have the version here 17.12.02, and which is like the right version. So this is like pretty cool, I would say, because you just type in here like this query, what is the iOS version? And then based on with the use of LM, with an LM agent per se, you can see here the output. And because of like testing purposes, I basically, you can see here like how does the LM think, or how is the thinking process. So at first you see here that this is the plan. Use NetMiko, define a device type, use the show version command, extract the iOS version, and so on. Then the second step would be to create the code. It's creating the code with already username, password, which everything is right. And then you see here the output with the show version command.
Wow.
And then finally, I do some text to match the code, like to check, okay, if everything is good, like it does a validation of the code at first. And then finally, like it saves actually. So the LM is not executing it. It saves it to a temporary Python file. And then this Python file is getting executed.
Wow.
And like I said, like one important disclaimer there is that I would only use show commands there, because you never know, especially in production systems, like do you testing, you can do validation, you can do like filtering, but don't run, for example, the classic part in, okay, shut down every shut down every interfaces and these kind of thing. Like don't use this in production. But this is like for you to think that I created this just now, and this is just like a small POC, let's say, like proof of concept. And imagine what Cisco, what we are doing as of now in the business units there.
iOS version, right? I mean, we are not telling our script to execute a show IP interface brief command. It is figuring it out by itself. And that's why it
Yes.
is risky and not recommended to be used with configuration manipulations. Amazing.
That is correct, yes.
And it also parses out the total output. I mean, when we run show version command on the device, it's going to throw us a lot of information like we just saw on your terminal. But then it is also parsing out the version, the specific version number along with the name of the version. And that's all. It just trims all the other information and just gives you exactly what you want out of your device outcome. And then instead of you opening up Mistral in the browser and then typing your query, why don't you just run the script with one single click and then have your result with you? And that's such a great capability to have. It's like having your own Jarvis.
There you go.
It's always been a dream. This is great.
Like this is definitely what will come in the future, what we are working on right now in an agentic world. So which means that maybe you have now like this is one code agent, but maybe you have one only for DNS. Maybe you will have only one for NTP. Maybe you have only one for your interfaces or for one device. So I'm really curious and excited on where we are going now, where basically I would a bit compare it as a device twin, or maybe not, where you have like every agent has its or every device has its own agent. And if something is wrong, the device is basically saying, hey, like agent, this is the error code. And the agent is like kind of like see it as a half human or like a bit of intelligent human, which is then saying or do a pre-filtering already and saying, this is really like that's a big error. You should definitely like talk to our network administrator there. And these are on the way, of course, on the warning. There are also like suggestions on this is what you can solve there. This is these are some options on what you can do in order to remove the error, in order to solve this issue. And this is like a lot of a bit of future talk, but in a way you see it here, like with this demo there, this is already something what can be implemented. So I'm experimenting a lot with the like show commands to read only the data there, because I think there is a big value already. Yeah, like I would not recommend, like you said before, to just type in the code in order to, especially in production environments, of course, to just type in some message there, shut down interface or reboot, or
turn
yeah,
off all the BGP neighbors.
yeah, for example, like I would not recommend that.
This is great. Now, one curious question of me as a learner as well. So you highlighted a couple of LLMs over there. Is there any documentation that we can look up to for? I mean, how does one gets to know that there is something called Meta's LLM? There is the one called Mistral. There's one called Gemini. How does one get started with it? Because I guess someone also in the chat is asking a question that so it would be more useful to use Gen AI for network automation through the use of dashboard, or would predictive AI not lead the Gen AI in some cases? So how does one get started to learn? And I also have read and made modifications to Cisco recently have launched the new CCNA, right? And it contains the introduction to artificial intelligence as one of its topic over there. So I see Cisco is emphasizing a lot on focusing towards the AI, and everyone would need to start learning about AI. So what are the fundamental steps that one take in order to get started with their learning journey towards AI? Over to you, Flo. Yeah.
No, perfect. So like, and I think this was a very good move. So like from my friends from learning at Cisco or Cisco U, that they put in like basic knowledge when it comes to LM, generative AI in network automation in CCNA 1.1. I would say with that at first, when you would like to solve any issue, think about what kind of algorithm, not even, or what kind of tool is out there in order to solve this issue. And this is like, ask ChatGPT, ask Google in a way, how do I do this, and what should I do there? There is one example, like to summarize, is that if you would like to predict, for example, network usage for the upcoming weeks, don't use an LM, use a predictive algorithm. What kind of algorithm? It depends on your data. It depends on the use case there. There are a bunch of various tool cases and frameworks out there. In this case, I used linear regression because it was a linear data, but I would not use linear data when it comes like when your data is kind of like, on the weekends it goes down, on the weekdays it goes up there. If you would like to create code, like I did before with where you can exchange data, where you would like to ask even what kind of iOS command is used in order to create VLAN interfaces or to check with BGP and these kind of things, then use generative AI. By using means that just go in on ChatGPT, on Mistral, and it gives you all the output there instead of Googling, for example. Or if you are doing the troubleshooting there, you can just copy paste, of course, the logging there, and like I did, to see what is the error code, what does it mean, how can I solve the issue. But what you could also do is like you can combine this. Combine, which means that giving like if there is a peak in the network or something like that, then use Python with the API like to connect to the LM, and then with the error code, and the LM is giving you already like in a chat or via email, is giving you, hey, like this is the response what I have, this is the error, and this is your issues on how you can solve them. So it's kind of like an LM is like a cool tool where you can connect a lot, but it doesn't solve everything. An LM itself can't get the data out of you. You need REST API, you need Python. If you would like to predict some data, like what is the prediction there, you can't use like an LM doesn't help you that much. But if you are like in a troubleshooting phase, if you're in a discovery phase, if you're in a code creation phase, then you can use generative AI there.
Makes sense. Yeah. I think so. Knowing what your use case is the fundamental thing that one should be good at. And if you're figuring it out, that what kind of problem statement you have, and then you're able to also figure out whether you're going to use the predictive AI or Gen AI, that helps you solve it in a better way possible. If you mix and match, then you might have the result because AI is trained for that, but the quality of the result will not be top notch.
Right.
Perfect. And apart from that, we have another question in the chat from Abu Bakr Siddiqui, that can we add Mistral in LM Studio?
Yeah, that's a good point. So you can. So Mistral is used for, or mainly used for, to run LLMs locally. So Mistral, they also have an offline version. So which means you download the LM to your laptop, and then it can run it. So Mistral, as in the open source Mistral, on what you can download, you can run in LM Studio. But the cloud version, or like to connect it, you can't. So like this is like Mistral. It's Mistral. You can use like the chat version. ChatGPT use the chat version. So LM Studio is mostly for running your LLMs locally.
Makes sense. Yeah. So you can use your own large language models and then integrate it with LM Studio and run it to test it, to customize it, and depending on your use cases. Makes sense.
Right.
Awesome. And I guess we're pretty good with the Q&As also. And with that, we're pretty much good. So someone over there in the Q&A session also asks you that please suggest any two Gen AI certification. Do we have any certifications already?
So with Gen AI certification, like I only know from cloud providers some that they have some there. However, I would say that there is like from Cisco side, we have like the CCDA with AI as far as CCDE with AI, especially in the infrastructure part. So CCDE AI, this would be one where I can definitely say, hey, this would be definitely good, or about what I can recommend. There are also like information on Cisco U you can see. And there you can basically, it goes into practical guides of the prompt engineering, how you build your infrastructure there, and explore, of course, like the OpenAI API with Python or so on. So I can actually like post it here in the chat. There you can see it. This would be something what you definitely can learn and study on. But usually, like it depends on, of course, usually with certifications where you would like your career to go. But if you're looking for certifications, this one would be definitely one to do.
This would definitely be integrated with a lot of certifications in the DevNet stream, of course.
Indeed. That's for sure. That's for sure.
Awesome. And with that, I guess we're pretty good for this particular webinar. Thanks for everyone who have joined it. Thank you so much, Flo, for taking us through this wonderful demonstrations. This has really helped us strengthen the knowledge, the fundamental knowledge, at least, about what AI is and what predictive AI and Gen AI is all about, and which one do we really use with network automation use cases. And I also, strict disclaimer, do not configure anything on your production environments with AI yet, but you don't know what you can do it in the future. So let's hope for the best. Any final words, Flo?
Thanks for having me. Definitely invest your time in generative AI. Like these are definitely my thoughts. Where stay up to date with all of it. Don't get too overwhelmed with using what kind of LM. Just stick to one, use it, and learn more about it. But learn especially like the different architecture styles, the different like generative AI use cases there, in order like how to apply it. But with that, I wish you all the best for your journey. And yeah, stay tuned for more content from PyNet Labs and DevNet for sure.
Thank you so much. It was wonderful having you on the show, Flo. All the best and see you soon. Bye-bye,
Thank
guys.
you. Bye-bye.
Yeah, thank you.